As it was shall be again, and thus the sky will fall, a meteor to split the earth and spell the end of all. Unless the trusted Lorekeeper will make the world their ward, and through their pure hearts summon the mighty Dragon Lord. Together they may save the day, but at a heavy cost. A future bought for one and all, but the Lorekeeper lost. There is a moment of silence after these words. Before the speaker, a middle-aged woman looks to her audience and asks if they know what she just recited. At her feet, a young boy and girl look up with awe before the girl pipes up, saying it was the prophecy of the end times. The older woman smiles and praises the girl, who she calls Zinnia, saying that this is correct. The boy then jumps up, saying that he wants to meet the Dragon Lord like in the prophecy. The woman chuckles and says that maybe someday he will, but Zinnia cuts in, saying she'll meet Lord Rayquaza before Ash. Ash says there's no way, affectionately calling her Z, and the two children begin to bicker. With a sigh that indicates how familiar she is with this sort of behaviour, the woman slyly suggests that if they keep acting out like this, she'll have to find herself a new apprentice, and that lucky boy or girl will be the one to meet the Dragon Lord. This shuts the 7-year-olds up, just as she knew it would, and the pair begin apologising, calling her Mama Asta. Mama Asta pulls the children into a hug to show that all is forgiven, then tells them it's time to get back to their studies. When the children are settled, Asta begins to quiz the kids, starting simple and asking them, what is a Lorekeeper? Ash is the first to answer this time, saying the Lorekeeper is the guardian of the village's history. Mama Asta congratulates Ash on his right answer, then asks why it's important to remember the history. Zinnia answers that because they are descended from Hoenn's native people, and they still remember the Primal Age, and the prophecies that came from that time, like the prophecy of the end times. Mama Asta claps proudly, then poses her final question to the pair. What does it mean to be the Lorekeeper? Both children answer this with the deepest solemnity in their voice. They tell Mama Asta that to be the Lorekeeper means putting the village before yourself and always doing your duty. Mama Asta nods and promises that one day one of them will be an excellent Lorekeeper, before shooing them away to go play before dinner. The children cheer and scamper out of Asta's hut, racing each other through the streets of Meteor Village, while other members of the Draconid clan have to step out of their way. Grumpy Mr. Jinga yells at them to watch where they're going, but the kids are already gone. When they're outside the village, Ash and Zinnia clamber up a narrow ledge that leads them to the summit of Meteor Falls. They both feel a brief pang of guilt, remembering how Asta told them not to leave the village until they were older, but they quickly push this feeling aside when they catch sight of their friends. A boy and girl stand on the peak, overlooking Fall Arbor Town, but when they turn and see Zinnia and Ash approaching them, their bodies begin to glow and morph, revealing their true forms as Latias and Latios. Latias flies over and nuzzles Ash, while Latios playfully tackles Zinnia, causing the two to start wrestling. Ash and Latias laugh at their antics, before Latias darts between Ash's legs, forcing him onto her back, before taking off while he scrambles to find purchase. Latios, not wanting to be outdone by his sister, scoops up Zinnia and takes off with her on his back. Not needing to waste time while his rider adjusts, Latios is able to catch up with Latias, and the pair proceed to race around the mountain while the humans cheer and egg their mounts on. It is a tight race, but Zinnia and Latios manage to win by a nose, causing Latios to take a victory lap, while Latias hangs her head and whines an apology. But Ash seems unconcerned, patting Latias on the head and thanking her for a great ride. He then runs up to Zinnia, and the pair begin gushing over how incredible flying felt, until a familiar voice dryly states that it most certainly looked exhilarating. With a gulp, Ash and Zinnia turn to see their adoptive mother standing near the ledge they climbed to get here. She tells them that Renza spotted them sneaking out, and informed her at once. She then lightly scolds the children for leaving the village without telling her, saying that if they'd gotten lost or injured, she'd have had no way of finding them. Zinnia and Ash apologize, but try to justify their actions, saying they thought Latias and Latios would be lonely without anyone to come play with them. Mama Asta softens at this, saying that she admires their empathy, but asks them to think about the consequences of their action in the future. They promise that they will, and Mama Asta approaches the Eon Pokemon, patting their heads and greeting them as old friends. Both Latios and Latias nuzzle her, while Ash and Zinnia look on in amazement. Wryly, Mama Asta asks if the kids really thought they were Latias and Latios' only friends, and then informs them that she's known the pair since she was little, and that she too used to sneak out to see them and watch the stars. Zinnia is awestruck by this, saying she knew their mum met Rayquaza, but never knew she met more legendary Pokemon. In response, Mama Asta smiles wistfully, and pats the Pokemon's heads again, saying that they were with her when it happened. She then tells the children how it was the night before her initiation as Lorekeeper, and she had come up to the summit to see her friends. They had taken to the sky for one last ride, and as they soared through the clouds, she saw the Dragon Lord himself soaring alongside them. This alone would have been a miracle, but Rayquaza had sensed something in her, and allowed Asta to ride on his back. It had only been for less than a minute, but in that time, she was able to bask in his light and feel his blessing. Ash and Zinnia gasp, having never heard the whole story before. But unfortunately, that was not really the whole story, as they would learn in time. Through their Lorekeeper training would come the revelation that the light of Rayquaza, while beautiful to behold, contains a radiation that is lethal to humans, with Asta being no exception. It is not long after this, when Mama Asta starts to show signs of weakening. The symptoms show themselves slowly, and Asta does her best to keep up her duties as Lorekeeper, but eventually it gets too much, with Ash and Zinnia doing their best to pick up the slack. But they know they are fighting a losing battle from the start. Now 3 years on, the 10-year-old pair do the only thing they can: sit by Mama Asta's bedside, hold her hands, and make sure she is comfortable. And this is where we find Ash and Zinnia, in Asta's bedroom, watching over their mentor. There is calm silence, until Zinnia finally speaks, looking as though she can no longer hold this painful thought inside her. She says how unfair it is that someone as good as Mama Asta, who devoted her whole life to the village, now has to suffer like this, and that she truly deserves better. Ash feels inclined to agree, but in a moment of lucidity, Asta shakes her head. She tells her adoptive children not to trouble themselves with thoughts like that, and that she is happy with the life she has led, and would not change a thing. She then goes on to add that her only regret is the knowledge of how much pain it will cause Ash and Zinnia when she is gone. Through tears, Ash lets out a raspy laugh, saying that even now Mama Asta can't think of herself and only cares about the impact on others. This compliment makes Asta smile, and it is the last expression her face ever makes. That evening, the entire village come together for Mama Asta's memorial service, with even Latias and Latios paying their respects in human form. On the summit of Meteor Falls, they scatter her ashes into the night sky, so they may become one with the stars, and then say a prayer that she will find rest in the Dragon Lord's celestial kingdom. With the formalities done, people begin to disperse, but before they can get away, Jinga approaches Ash and Zinnia. He expresses his deepest condolences for their loss, but tells them that there are urgent matters they must discuss regarding the appointment of a new Lorekeeper. He continues that traditionally, when no singular successor has been named, the apprentices engage in a Pokemon battle to decide, but Ash and Zinnia refuse to fight each other over this, with Zinnia barking that surely this can wait at least until tomorrow. Jinga sighs that he wishes it could, but the village needs a new Lorekeeper right now. Ash asks why, and Jinga tells them that reports are coming in of a giant meteor, which many think might be the sign of the end times. The pair understand, and say there's no time to waste, and that they must summon the Dragon Lord at once. Jinga agrees, and says this is why they need to decide on who will be Lorekeeper, but the pair state who gets the title is irrelevant, and they will share the role at least until this crisis is averted. Jinga doesn't seem happy about this unconventional arrangement, but just as when they were younger, the pair run past him, heading for home. Each dusty scroll, clay tablet, and rough-bound book causes a pang of remembrance, but nonetheless, the duo begin to dig through them. Desperately, they search for any clue on how they might summon Rayquaza and save the world, all the while wishing they had their mother to guide them. On the second night without stopping, Ash slumps forward. Zinnia, who seems to have chosen mania as her way to keep pushing forward, finds this unacceptable and demands to know if he plans to leave the responsibility of saving the world to her. Ash says of course not, using her childhood nickname, Z, and apologizes for his momentary lapse. Zinnia tells him it's alright, but asks him if he's found anything. Ash admits that he's found repeated references to a hidden mural, which is said to commemorate the first summoning of Rayquaza, but he's got no idea where this mural is. This makes Zinnia beam, and she tells him how her research has revealed the location of a mural chamber on Juford Island. Excitedly, the pair compare notes, and before long are able to conclude that the answers they need are in Granite Cave. This knowledge buoys them, and at once they decide to set out for Juford Island. When they step foot outside the hut, Jinga is waiting for them. He nervously asks if they have any leads, and they tell him that they do, explaining their plan to go to Juford Island right away. Jinga says this is good, and hands each of them a Pokeball. He says that Mama Asta selected these 2 Pokemon for them, and had planned to give them to them on their 10th birthdays. Ash and Zinnia gratefully accept these, calling their Pokemon forth to see that Zinnia has been bequeathed a Bagon, while Ash has been left a Trapinch. Trapinch at once leaps up and chomps its trainer's head, while Bagon tries to look cool for Zinnia. Both trainers welcome their new friends, while bidding farewell to their old ones. Half the village want to shake their hands as they leave, with the last approaching them being Latios and Latias in disguise. Both look hopefully at the new Lorekeepers, silently asking to come with them. Ash and Zinnia confer for a moment, then tell their Pokemon friends that the risk would be too great, and ask them to stay behind and protect the village in their stead. This saddens the Eon duo, but they comply, hugging Ash and Zinnia and pressing a pair of small stones into their hands. Ash and Zinnia recognize them as keystones, and so fasten these last gifts to their clothes, before descending deeper into the mountain. For several hours, the pair travel in silence, driven by their single-minded determination to reach Granite Cave as quickly as they can. But determination alone cannot fuel a body that has not eaten, nor power one that hasn't slept, and so eventually, the pair have to stop and set up camp. Ash decides to take first watch, and in the silent stillness, he can't help but be reminded of the silent days spent by Asta's bedside. This makes him realize that in the wake of his and Zinnia's discovery, he hasn't thought about Mama Asta in hours. He feels sick with guilt, hating himself for so easily forgetting about the woman who raised him. Silently, he says a prayer to Mama Asta's spirit, asking for forgiveness, and more than that, for guidance on their mission. This soon becomes a plea for some sort of sign that she's still with them, watching over them, and then a whisper hits him on the head. Ash howls in pain, waking Zinnia, who rushes over to see what's wrong. Quickly, they recognize this Whismur as a wild one they used to play with as kids, and who their mother used to feed from time to time. But that's not what they find interesting. As the Whismur looks at Zinnia, she notices how the quizzical tilt of its head is exactly the same as Asta's when she would quiz them about their Lorekeeper duties. In a trembling voice she asks, "Asta?" And with no hesitation the Pokemon smiles, as if it is glad to be addressed by name once more. This causes Ash and Zinnia to break down in tears. They pull the Whismur into a hug, but it continues to surprise them by resting its head against them and laying a comforting hand over each of their hearts. The next day, the pair of Lorekeepers set off again, feeling revitalized both physically and emotionally, with Asta the Whismur by their side. Neither feels right about capturing her, and so they decide that she will simply be their traveling companion. They are able to get to the base of Meteor Falls by midday, and from there it is only a short walk to Rustboro City, where they're able to take a ferry to Juford Island. During the boat trip, Ash and Zinnia bring out their Pokemon to enjoy the sea air with them. Bagon tries to act indifferent, but clearly loves the sea spray, while Trapinch on the other hand is eager, right up until it catches sight of the ocean. Something about this sight causes it to freeze up in terror, too scared to even playfully bite Ash's head. Ash concernedly asks what's wrong, but Trapinch just shudders and tries to burrow its way into his cloak. Ash then tries to comfort his partner, but it is Zinnia who comes to the rescue. She says that as a ground type, Trapinch probably doesn't like water, and tells Ash to think before bringing out his Pokemon. Ash apologizes to Trapinch and sends it back into its Pokeball. After this, the ferry ride passes uneventfully, and by nightfall, they arrive on Juford Island. Wasting no time, Ash and Zinnia head straight for Granite Cave, where they are promptly forced to stumble in the darkness because neither of them thought to pack a flashlight. It seems like they will need to leave and come back in the morning, but then Asta comes to their aid, using Flash to illuminate the darkness. Zinnia looks confused, commenting that she's pretty sure Whismur can't learn that move, but Ash just smiles and tells his friend to trust in Asta, since she's very clearly a special Pokemon. Thanks to the Flash, the pair are able to find the mural chamber with Zinnia's guidance, and what they find is a gift beyond their wildest dreams. Painted on the wall is a depiction of a great battle between Groudon and Kyogre, with Rayquaza coming down from the heavens to stop the fighting at once. Ash and Zinnia know that this is their answer. If they can find where Groudon and Kyogre are slumbering and reawaken the sleeping giants, then the Dragon Lord will surely reappear to quell the violence. This in turn will give them their chance to summon him and enlist his aid in destroying the meteor that threatens the world. For one shining moment, it feels as if all their problems are solved. But then it all comes crashing down when Ash voices the fact that they don't have a clue where to find Groudon or Kyogre. Despondently, they slump to the ground, until Zinnia speaks up, saying that she remembers hearing about an oceanic museum in Slateport City, and that if anywhere would have information on Kyogre, it would be there. Ash agrees, and so the pair start making their way back to the cave entrance. However, they soon find their way blocked by a young man with steely hair and a steelier gaze. He introduces himself as Steven, and asks if they're here to look for rare stones as well. The pair say that they're just tourists, and so pass without saying another word, though Ash can't help but feel the man's eyes on his back, all the way to the surface. To their dismay, the ferry services ended for the night when Ash and Zinnia finally trek back to Jufid Town, so they decide to spend the night at the Pokemon Center. Here, their Pokemon are refreshed, and they're able to get a good night's rest. The next day, they take a ferry to Slateport City, with Ash wisely choosing to keep Trapinch in its ball this time. But when they enter the museum, they find that all is not well. A group of men and women dressed like pirates have taken the museum hostage, and upon seeing two kids just stroll in, demand they surrender now or prepare to fight. The pair prepare to resist, pulling out their Pokeballs, but then are stopped when they distinctly hear the word Kyogre. Lowering their Pokeballs and looking in the direction of the voice, they see a large muscular man with close-cropped hair and a beard, and the symbol of this group tattooed on his chest. He once more demands to see the scale of Kyogre, but the scientist he is speaking to protests that he doesn't know what the big man is talking about. Before the pair of Lorekeepers can ask what he means by scale of Kyogre, they are grabbed by a pair of grunts and roughly shoved towards a group of hostages. All of them look terrified, except for a short purple-haired scientist, who oddly enough is laughing to herself, and this seems to anger the big man. He gives up on the scientist and barges over, demanding to know what's so funny, but this just makes the woman laugh harder. She tells the man, who she addresses as Matt, that he always was a brainless brute, and that he should know screaming at a problem never makes it go away. This seems to take Matt aback, so the woman continues, saying it doesn't matter either way, since the scale in question is from Groudon, not Kyogre. She then puts two fingers in her mouth and lets out a shrill whistle which is clearly meant as a signal, since moments later a swarm of men and women in red hooded gear comes smashing through the windows. The woman then tosses aside her lab coat to reveal a similar set of red clothing, while Matt gasps, then growls the name Courtney. The woman, who is presumably Courtney, tells her allies to drive out the Team Aqua scum, while Matt responds in kind, telling his goons to destroy Team Magma. At once, the situation devolves into a massive battle, with Team Aqua and Magma's Pokemon clashing throughout the museum, while Matt and Courtney go straight for each other. In the chaos, the hostages take this chance to flee, while Ash and Zinnia send out Trapinch and Bagon to battle any Pokemon in their way. Bagon takes out a Poochyena and Carvana, while Trapinch dispatches a Numel and Zigzagoon, but eventually they are able to get to the door. From outside, they watch as blasts rock the museum, before suddenly the roof explodes. From the smoke bursts Courtney and her cohort, carrying a large sealed crate and flying away on jetpacks. By now, most of the hostages have left the scene, but Ash and Zinnia remain to confer. They both recognize what a valuable resource Team Aqua and Team Magma could be to their plans, since at the very least, they have information on Groudon and Kyogre, but it is with a heavy heart that they realize what they will have to do next. Finally, Ash is the one to say it, admitting that if they want to pursue both Aqua and Magma, they'll need to split up for a while. Zinnia gravely accepts this, then says she will go after Team Magma, since they might have seen Ash battling their Pokemon, so it'd be less likely to accept him into their ranks than they would with her. Ash agrees, and with a sober look embraces his oldest friend. He tells her to be safe, and she tells him to do the same, promising that they will save the world. Ash then asks Asta to go with Zinnia, hoping the good fortune she's brought will go with her. Asta squeaks her assent, and so Ash watches as the pair depart up Route 110. When his friends are out of view, Ash steels himself and walks back into the ruined museum. When he enters, he sees Matt and the grunts lamenting their failure until they catch sight of him. Then Matt approaches, looking rather menacing as he does. He demands to know why Ash came back, and Ash says because he wants to join Team Aqua, and lies that this was why he came to the museum in the first place. Matt looks unconvinced, and asks why he should let Ash join. Ash thinks for a moment, not sure what to say, then strikes upon an idea and cheekily says because he got in twice, adding that this means they need a better door guard, and so should hire him. Matt ponders this for a second, then bursts out laughing, saying that the kid has guts, and that he likes that. With a smile, he offers Ash a hand, calling him Little Bro, and welcoming him to Team Aqua. However, when Ash shakes the big man's hand, his smile is more akin to a rictus, because he knows that this is just the beginning of his real mission, and it will take far more than guts for him and Zinnia to fulfill their duties and prevent the end times. And that's where we'll leave things. Will Zinnia be able to ingratiate herself with Team Magma as easily as Ash has with Team Aqua? How will Ash adapt to life among the villainous crew? And what lines will the pair have to cross in service of their mission? Find out when the journey continues.